Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to connect to your Raspberry Pi video streaming payload and start the automatic recording process to record in 10-minute chunks. So the first thing you're going to need is a SSH client. So for this video I'll be using Bitvice SSH client. To find Bitvice you can just open up Google and type in Bitvice download. We're going to be wanting to download the Bitvice SSH client. So there's going to be two versions that when you click on the client installer, it could possibly pop up on the previous page here. Looking at this, there's a Bitvice SSH client and a Bitvice SSH server. So make sure you click on the one that's Bitvice SSH client and then click on the installer to download. When you finish downloading this program, just click on the installer and run through the setup process with default choices for everything. So once you have the installer, or once you have the SSH client installed, go ahead and open it up. And when you open it up for the first time, what you're going to see is a page that will look like this. It's automatically going to have this port filled in as 22. That's what we want. You'll want to put in your IP address of the Raspberry Pi, which is 192.168.1.3. You're going to want to go over to authentication, put in Pi for the username, and then for initial method, we'll want to change that to password. The password for the Raspberry Pi is raspberry, RASPBERRY. Once that is all entered in and you have your connection over the Ubiquiti M5 modems, go ahead and click login. So we're going to see two different windows here. So this window, the Bitvice SFTP, this is where you can download files directly from your Raspberry Pi when you're connected to it. Or you can upload files from your computer to the Raspberry Pi. We're going to ignore that for this video. What we're going to look for though is when you first open up this terminal, type in ls and it will list the subdirectory that you're in. We're going to want to change directory or cd to bin. You can type ls in again, you'll see that there's a folder called Python in here. So we'll want to go into this guy, and then one more time we'll see that there's three different folders here. So the Octuplexer is for 8-camera shield board that goes on top that some groups have opted into getting. The single camera is for the servo control off the Raspberry Pi for a single servo, and the auto record is what we're going to want to go into. So we'll change directories into auto record, and when we enter here there will be a readme and a Python script file. So when we're looking at this, we're going to want to run this on startup. For this Python script file, we can go into it and see what's working or what's going on here by typing in nano, N-A-N-O, and then the file name. So when you start to type the file, if you hit tab, it'll autocomplete whatever the rest of the name is if it's the only one with that unique name. So as this opens up, there's a few things that you can look in here. The main thing is, if you guys wanted to change from 10-minute chunks of video being recorded, you can change it to whatever time you want. So right now it says 6:02. That's 602 seconds of recording. With FFmpeg that's running here, it takes about 2 seconds to initialize and start recording. So when you end this file, or when it records at 602 seconds and you open up the file, you're going to see a 10-minute flat video. If you wanted to change this to a 20-minute video, you can put in 1202 instead, or whatever time you decide on putting in. This was a method to try and prevent video corruption if the Raspberry Pi or the payload got stuck in a tree, dumped in the water. If it's writing to all the same file, the same video file, there is a chance that you can corrupt the whole video file. So in this case, when we're doing 10-minute chunks, it's going to break up the file into all kinds of different chunks. And then that way, if the video gets corrupted, you're only corrupting that last bit, that last 10 minutes, instead of all the file. So since we're not going to do anything in this file this time, we can exit. To exit out of Nano, you hit Control X and it will exit. If I went into Nano and made a change, like a single space line, when you hit Control X, it'll say Save Modify Buffer, yes, no, cancel. We're going to hit Y on our keyboard to say yes, and then it's going to give you the option to change your name. For this one, we're going to say we're just going to hit enter. So we didn't want to change the name. So now this file will still be in the subdirectory and just sitting there. What we're going to do is enter it into the cron tab. The cron tab is a process that is ran at the beginning of the initialization when the Raspberry Pi restarts or boots up. When it runs through a bunch of different processes, if you have it hooked up to a monitor, you'll be able to see all kinds of little drivers and firmware initialize and run at the beginning. Cron tab is one of them that you might be able to see if you concentrate really hard and watch it all fly by. But for this case, we'll want to enter it into our cron tab for the root user so that we can start this Python command at boot up every time. So to do that, we'll type in sudo sudo cron tab CRONTAB space -e. When you open this up for the first time, you're going to see a blank file with or the first time you open this up, it's actually going to ask you what kind of editor you would like to use. For the ease of use for this video, I would recommend hitting number 2 for Nano. That is currently what I'm using to edit this file. There are other options. So the top one is it's ED, which is a different editor that I'm spaced on right now, and then the last two are Vim, which are, for somebody that's never used an editor before, I would not recommend. Vim is a little backwards in some of its keybinds, so just go with Nano for now. In this file, it's going to be completely blank, except that I've already entered this file and put in the command and path line of where I want to start this. So at reboot at the very beginning here says when this Raspberry Pi restarts, it's going to look at this and say, hey, I need to do this command afterwards. At reboot, it's going to run Python interpreter to run the file that's on this path line. So on all the new video streaming Raspberry Pi images, this path is going to be exactly the same. It's going to be /home/pi, and that's where you start off when you open up this terminal. And then we did cd bin, and then cd python cd auto record. So that's where we went when we logged into this Pi to get to the Python file. And then this Python file is sitting in that auto record directory or folder. So to run this at boot up, we'll type this in. After we get done typing this in, we'll hit Control X and then Control Y and then enter. Now that this is entered into the cron tab, you can do sudo reboot to restart the Raspberry Pi. Once you restart the Raspberry Pi and reconnect to it, the next thing that you'll want to check is do ps aux. So this is going to list off all the currently running processes on the system. So when we put our repeat 10 minutes.py script into the cron tab, we want to make sure that it's running when we start back up next time. So when you type in this command, you'll be able to look at the system, and then if you look through the list, you'll see that it's about halfway through the list here. So this Python /home/pi/bin/python/auto record, and if we extend this out to see the whole thing, we'll see that this is indeed the command that we just put into the cron tab. So right now, this command is currently running to record videos. Since we put this into the root user or sudo cron tab, what we did earlier, it's going to store it into the sudo user space of where it's going to place the file. To retrieve those files or see where they're at, we'll do sudo su. So this will change your root user to the super user. Once that happens, your color will change color if you're using xterminal or bitvice, and now we can do cd. So cd will take you back to the default directory for that user. For the root user, as what I am now, it's going to take me to the directory where the files are being recorded. So right now, you can see that there is indeed being a file recorded right there as a .mp4. And here, if we wanted to get to that file, we would have to go up a few levels so that we're at the very top, and then find a file or a folder called root. Inside this folder is where our file is going to be. So 02012000, 02012000. So that is the file that we're looking at right here. Once this file completes recording, or when you go to retrieve your payload, you can download all the files through the bitvice sftp. by right-clicking on your files and just going up to download. So that's pretty much the video for setting up the Raspberry Pi so that it automatically records when you turn it on. Right now the files are formatted so they're only 10 minutes long, but like I said earlier, you can change that time by going to the repeat underscore 10m.py, and inside there editing the file so that instead of 602 seconds, it's going to go to some other time that you want. So for 3 minutes, you'd want 1,802 seconds. For 2 minutes, 1,202 seconds, and so on. So you guys can adjust this to, or 30 minutes and 20 minutes. You guys can adjust this to whatever time you want to record video lengths. Just for the baseline, it's going to record to 10 minutes once you set this up. And that's this video. Thanks for watching.